Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte. There is a fiction we tell ourselves, a comfortable lie whispered in polite company, that virtue is its own reward. We pretend that goodness guarantees success, that merit invariably rises to the top. This is a fallacy, a soothing balm for the naive and the weak. The world in its cold and uncaring reality rewards effectiveness, not intention. Power is not a prize given to the morally pure. It is a tool seized by those willing to wield it, regardless of the ethical cost. We are not concerned with fairy tales. We dissect the machinery of influence, understand the levers of control, and expose the raw, unfiltered truth about how dominance is achieved and maintained. This path is not for everyone. It requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable realities, to see humanity as it is, not as it should be. Most prefer the comforting illusion. We, however, operate in the shadows, where the true game is played. The pursuit of power is often framed as inherently corrupt, a descent into moral decay. This narrative is convenient for those who already hold power, as it discourages others from challenging their position. It is a clever manipulation, a way to maintain the status quo by equating ambition with evil, but power itself is neutral. It is a force, like gravity, that exists independently of our moral judgments. The question is not whether power is good or bad, but how it is used. A surgeon wields the power of a scalpel to heal. A demagogue uses the power of rhetoric to incite hatred. The tool is the same, the intention defines the outcome. We do not advocate for the reckless pursuit of dominance at any cost. Our aim is to understand the dynamics of power, to see through the manipulations and deceptions that are used to control others. Only then can we navigate the world with clear eyes, protect ourselves from exploitation, and if we choose, wield influence effectively in our own lives. Understanding these principles does not make you evil, it makes you aware. The illusion of fairness is a powerful weapon in the hands of the unscrupulous. They exploit our innate desire for justice, knowing that we are more likely to trust those who appear to be acting in good faith. This is why deception is so prevalent in the pursuit of power. It is often easier to manipulate people through lies and half-truths than through brute force. The skillful deceiver understands the psychology of their target, their hopes, their fears, their vulnerabilities. They craft a narrative that appeals to these weaknesses, subtly guiding their victim towards a predetermined outcome. This is not about mindless aggression, it is about calculated strategy, about using intelligence and guile to achieve one's objectives. We are not interested in empty moralizing. We examine the techniques of manipulation, the art of persuasion, the science of influence. Knowledge is our shield, and understanding is our sword. Many believe that charisma is an innate quality, a gift bestowed upon a select few. This is another comforting myth. While some individuals may possess a natural inclination towards charm and magnetism, charisma is, in large part, a learned skill. It is the ability to project confidence, to connect with others on an emotional level, to articulate a vision that resonates with their desires and aspirations. The truly charismatic leader understands the power of storytelling, the ability to weave narratives that inspire loyalty and commitment. They master the art of nonverbal communication, using body language, tone of voice, and eye contact to convey authority and authenticity. They understand that people are more likely to follow those who make them feel understood, valued, and inspired. Charisma is not about being liked, it is about being followed. It is a tool, like any other, that can be used for good or ill. We dissect its components, analyze its techniques, and reveal the underlying principles that make it so effective. The pursuit of dark power demands a profound understanding of human psychology. It is not merely about dominating others through brute force or intimidation. It is about subtly shaping their perceptions, influencing their decisions, and ultimately controlling their actions. This requires a deep understanding of the motivations, desires, and vulnerabilities that drive human behavior. The master of dark power is a keen observer of human nature, constantly analyzing the people around them, identifying their weaknesses, and exploiting their biases. They understand that most people are driven by emotions, not logic, and they skillfully manipulate these emotions to achieve their goals. Fear, greed, envy, and vanity are all powerful levers that can be used to control others. The truly skilled manipulator understands how to use these emotions to create a sense of urgency, to bypass critical thinking, and to induce people to act against their own best interests. This is not about simple trickery or deception, It is about creating a carefully constructed reality that reinforces the manipulator's agenda. They craft a narrative that appeals to the target's deepest desires and anxieties, subtly guiding them towards a predetermined outcome. The psychology of dark power extends beyond simply understanding individual motivations. It also involves understanding group dynamics and social influence. The master of dark power knows how to exploit the inherent conformity of human beings to create a sense of social pressure that compels individuals to fall in line. They understand the power of authority, and they skillfully project an aura of competence and control that inspires obedience. They also understand the power of social proof, the tendency for people to follow the actions of others, especially in uncertain situations. By carefully orchestrating the behavior of a few key individuals, they can create a ripple effect that influences the entire group. This is not about mindless coercion, it is about creating a carefully engineered social environment that reinforces the manipulator's power and control. The strategic deployment of misinformation is a crucial tool in the arsenal of dark power. It's not simply about lying, it's about carefully crafting a narrative that supports a specific agenda, even if that narrative is based on falsehoods or distortions of the truth. The goal is to create confusion, sow doubt, and undermine the credibility of opposing viewpoints. This requires a deep understanding of how people process information, how they form beliefs, and how they can be persuaded to accept alternative realities. The master of misinformation understands that repetition is key. By constantly repeating a message, even if it's false, they can create a sense of familiarity and acceptance. They also understand the power of framing, the ability to shape the way people interpret information by selectively highlighting certain aspects and downplaying others. By framing an issue in a way that favors their agenda, they can influence public opinion and manipulate the narrative. The use of misinformation is not limited to overt lies. It also includes the subtle manipulation of facts, the selective omission of information, and the use of emotionally charged language. The goal is to create a distorted picture of reality that serves the manipulator's interests. This requires a high degree of cunning, creativity, and a willingness to exploit the vulnerabilities of human cognition. Moreover, the spread of misinformation is often facilitated by the echo chamber effect, where individuals are primarily exposed to information that confirms their existing beliefs, reinforcing those beliefs and making them more resistant to dissenting viewpoints. By exploiting this tendency, manipulators can create isolated pockets of belief that are impervious to rational argument. This can lead to the polarization of society, making it more difficult to find common ground and to address complex issues effectively. The cultivation of strategic alliances is paramount in the pursuit and maintenance of dark power. No individual, no matter how brilliant or resourceful, can achieve lasting dominance alone. The ability to forge alliances, to build coalitions, and to leverage the resources of others is essential for achieving ambitious goals. This requires a deep understanding of power dynamics, the ability to identify potential allies, and the skill to negotiate mutually beneficial agreements. The master of alliance building understands that relationships are based on reciprocity, on giving and taking. They are willing to offer something of value in exchange for the support of others, whether it's access to resources, protection from enemies, or simply a share of the spoils. They also understand that alliances are not always permanent. They are often based on shifting interests and contingent circumstances. Therefore, it's crucial to constantly monitor the landscape, to reassess the value of existing alliances, and to be prepared to forge new ones as needed. The art of alliance building also involves managing conflict, resolving disputes, and maintaining a sense of loyalty and cohesion within the group. This requires strong leadership skills, the ability to mediate disagreements, and the wisdom to know when to compromise and when to stand firm. Furthermore, effective alliance building goes beyond mere transactional relationships. It involves cultivating a sense of shared purpose, a common identity, and a collective commitment to achieving shared goals. By fostering a strong sense of camaraderie and mutual support, the master of alliance building can create a powerful and resilient force that is capable of overcoming even the most daunting challenges. This is not simply about forming partnerships. It is about building a network of influence that amplifies one's power and extends one's reach. The art of calculated risk-taking is an indispensable element in the pursuit of dark power. Success in this domain is rarely achieved through timid caution or unwavering adherence to conventional norms. It demands a willingness to venture into uncharted territories, to confront potential dangers, and to embrace the possibility of failure. However, this is not about reckless abandon or impulsive decision-making. It is about carefully assessing potential rewards and risks, weighing the probabilities of success and failure, and making calculated choices based on a rational analysis of the available information. The master of risk-taking understands that every decision involves a trade-off between potential gain and potential loss. They are willing to accept a certain degree of risk in exchange for the opportunity to achieve a significant advantage. They also understand that risk can be mitigated through careful planning, preparation, and contingency planning. Before embarking on a risky venture, they meticulously analyze the situation, identify potential threats, and develop strategies to minimize their impact. They also have a backup plan in place, a contingency strategy to fall back on in case things go wrong. Moreover, the ability to learn from failures is crucial for mastering the art of risk-taking. Every setback, every miscalculation, provides valuable lessons that can be used to improve future decision-making. The master of risk-taking does not dwell on their mistakes. They analyze them, extract the relevant insights, and use them to refine their strategies. This iterative process of experimentation, analysis, and adaptation is essential for achieving long-term success in the face of uncertainty. It's not about avoiding risk altogether. It's about managing risk effectively, turning potential threats into opportunities, and using calculated gambles to gain a strategic advantage. Consider the corporate landscape, a battleground where ambition clashes with strategy and ruthlessness often dictates the victor. Imagine a scenario: a promising executive, let's call her Anya, finds herself positioned just beneath the CEO of a multinational corporation. The CEO, a seasoned veteran named Marcus, has hinted at retirement within the next few years. Anya, ambitious and driven, sees this as her golden opportunity. She begins subtly positioning herself as the natural successor, cultivating relationships with key board members, showcasing her successes, and subtly highlighting areas where Marcus's leadership might be perceived as slightly outdated or out of touch with the current market trends. Anya is not overtly disloyal. Instead, she frames her actions as a genuine desire to help the company transition smoothly into the future. She understands that a direct assault on Marcus would be foolish, as he still holds considerable power and influence. Instead, she employs a strategy of gradual erosion, chipping away at his authority while simultaneously building her own credibility. She identifies weaknesses in Marcus' pet projects, not to sabotage them directly, but to subtly steer resources towards her own initiatives, which invariably prove more successful. Anya understands the importance of perception. She cultivates a public image of competence, efficiency, and innovation. She is careful to always be seen as a team player, someone who puts the company's interests first, even when her own ambitions are clearly evident. She attends all the right meetings, asks the right questions, and offers insightful solutions, always careful to give credit to others where appropriate, further solidifying her image as a collaborative leader. This careful manipulation of perception is crucial to her success. Anya also understands the power of information. She cultivates a network of informants within the company, individuals who provide her with valuable insights into the inner workings of various departments, including Marcus's own office. This information allows her to anticipate Marcus's moves, to stay one step ahead of the game, and to subtly influence the narrative surrounding key decisions. She uses this information strategically, never revealing her sources and always framing her interventions as being based on her own astute observations and analytical skills. Anya is playing a long game. She understands that the CEO's succession is not a sprint, but a marathon. She is patient, persistent, and relentless in her pursuit of the top job. She is also acutely aware of the potential risks involved. She knows that Marcus is a formidable opponent and that he will not relinquish his power without a fight. She also knows that her actions are being watched and that any misstep could jeopardize her chances. Therefore, she proceeds with caution, always calculating the potential consequences of her actions and always having a backup plan in place. As the months pass, Anya's influence within the company continues to grow. Her projects thrive, her reputation soars, and her network of supporters expands. Marcus, meanwhile, begins to feel the pressure. He sees his authority gradually eroding, his ideas being subtly dismissed, and his allies being swayed by Anya's charm and competence. He realizes that he is in a fight for his legacy and that he must act decisively to protect his position. He attempts to counter Anya's moves, to undermine her projects, and to discredit her reputation. However, he finds himself increasingly isolated and outmaneuvered. Anya has successfully built a power base within the company, and she is now in a position to challenge Marcus directly. The climax arrives during a crucial board meeting where the company's future strategy is being debated. Marcus presents his vision, a conservative and incremental approach that is seen by many as being out of touch with the rapidly changing market. Anya then presents her alternative vision, a bold and innovative plan that promises to revitalize the company and drive future growth. The board members are impressed by Anya's vision, her passion, and her detailed understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing the company. After a lengthy debate, the board votes to adopt Anya's strategy, effectively sidelining Marcus and paving the way for her to become the next CEO. Marcus, defeated but not broken, realizes that he has been outmaneuvered by a master strategist. He resigns gracefully, leaving Anya to take the helm of the company. Anya's success is not simply a matter of luck or talent. It is the result of careful planning, strategic thinking, and a ruthless willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve her goals. She understood the power dynamics at play, she cultivated the right relationships, and she masterfully manipulated perception to her advantage. She was a master of dark power, and she used her skills to climb to the top of the corporate ladder. This scenario illustrates the cold logic of dark power in action. It is a world where emotions are secondary to strategy, where relationships are transactional, and where the pursuit of power is the ultimate goal. In this ruthless arena, the weak consistently fall prey to predictable traps. The most common of these is emotional reasoning, a fatal flaw in the world of calculated strategy. The weak allow their feelings to dictate their actions, clouding their judgment and blinding them to the underlying power dynamics. They react with anger, resentment, or fear, signaling their vulnerabilities and making themselves easy targets for manipulation. Their emotions become weapons used against them, exploited by those who understand the cold logic of power. Another pitfall is the illusion of fairness. The weak often cling to a naive belief that the world operates on principles of justice and meritocracy. They expect to be rewarded for their hard work and talent, assuming that their efforts will be recognized and appreciated. However, the reality of dark power is that fairness is a myth. Those who believe in it are easily exploited by those who do not. Merit is often irrelevant, and success is determined by strategic maneuvering, manipulation, and the ruthless pursuit of self-interest. The weak are often unprepared for this reality, leaving them vulnerable to those who are willing to play by different rules. Furthermore, the weak tend to underestimate the importance of perception. They focus on substance over style, believing that their actions speak for themselves. They fail to recognize that perception is often more important than reality. In the arena of power, it is not enough to be competent or capable. One must also be perceived as competent and capable. The weak neglect to cultivate their image, allowing others to define them and control the narrative. They fail to understand that a carefully crafted persona can be a powerful weapon, shaping opinions and influencing decisions. They are often surprised when their efforts are overlooked or dismissed, unaware that their lack of attention to perception has undermined their success. They do not cultivate a sense of presence, a carefully constructed aura that commands respect and attention. Another critical mistake made by the weak is their inability to anticipate and adapt to changing circumstances. They become complacent, relying on outdated strategies and failing to recognize emerging threats. They are slow to react to shifts in the power dynamics, leaving them vulnerable to being outmaneuvered by more agile and adaptable opponents. The world of dark power is constantly evolving, and those who fail to adapt are quickly left behind. The weak are often trapped by their own rigidity, clinging to familiar patterns and resisting change. They fail to recognize that the key to survival is the ability to anticipate, adapt, and evolve. Furthermore, the weak often fail to understand the importance of information. They neglect to gather intelligence, assess the landscape, and anticipate the moves of their opponents. They operate in a fog of ignorance, making decisions based on incomplete or inaccurate information. In the arena of power, knowledge is a weapon, and those who lack it are easily defeated. The weak are often too trusting, readily accepting information at face value without questioning its source or validity. They fail to recognize that information can be manipulated, distorted, and used to deceive. They do not invest in cultivating sources of reliable information, leaving them vulnerable to misinformation and propaganda. This lack of awareness makes them easily manipulated and controlled. The inability to forge alliances is yet another downfall. The weak often isolate themselves, failing to recognize the power of collaboration and the strength that comes from numbers. They are often driven by ego or fear, preventing them from forming meaningful connections with others. In the arena of power, alliances are essential for survival and success. Those who can build strong coalitions are able to leverage their collective strength to achieve their goals. The weak, however, are often left vulnerable, isolated, and exposed to the machinations of their opponents. They struggle to build trust, often viewing others with suspicion or resentment. They fail to recognize that even temporary alliances can provide crucial advantages in the pursuit of power. Finally, the weak are often crippled by a lack of self-awareness. They fail to understand their own strengths and weaknesses, their motivations and biases. They are unable to accurately assess their own capabilities or the capabilities of others. This lack of self-awareness makes them vulnerable to manipulation and self-deception. They are easily exploited by those who understand them better than they understand themselves. The weak often overestimate their own abilities, leading them to take on challenges that are beyond their capabilities. They fail to recognize their limitations, making them prone to mistakes and miscalculations. They are blind to their own flaws, preventing them from learning and growing. This lack of self-awareness is a fatal flaw in the arena of dark power. To truly navigate this landscape, one must possess a ruthless objectivity, not just toward others, but first and foremost toward oneself. Without this internal compass, the traps set for the weak become inescapable, and the descent into powerlessness is assured. The Machiavellian approach to power demands a systematic dismantling of naive morality. It requires one to view the world and all its inhabitants as instruments to be utilized. Compassion, empathy, and guilt become liabilities, hindering the cold calculation necessary for strategic advancement. Sentimentality clouds judgment, making one vulnerable to manipulation by those who feign distress or exploit emotional appeals. The Machiavellian operator understands that expressions of kindness are often masks, concealing ulterior motives and hidden agendas. Therefore, they cultivate a detachment, a clinical distance from the emotional turmoil of others. This detachment is not born of cruelty, but of necessity. It is the price one must pay to see the world clearly without the distorting lens of emotional bias. This allows one to anticipate the actions of others, to predict their weaknesses, and to exploit their vulnerabilities with ruthless efficiency. The Machiavellian strategist analyzes situations as a chess game, each player a piece to be moved, each interaction a calculated maneuver designed to achieve a specific advantage. There is no room for sentiment in this game, only strategy and outcome. Alliances are formed and broken with dispassionate pragmatism. Friendships are cultivated and discarded based on their utility, and loyalty is a currency to be exchanged for personal gain. The Machiavellian operator understands that trust is a dangerous illusion, a vulnerability to be guarded against. They trust no one implicitly, always maintaining a healthy skepticism, constantly assessing the motives and potential for betrayal in those around them. Information is their most valuable weapon, and they cultivate a network of informants and spies to gather intelligence, to anticipate threats, and to exploit opportunities. They understand that knowledge is power, and they relentlessly seek to acquire it, regardless of the means. Deception is a key tool in the Machiavellian arsenal. They are masters of disguise, adept at concealing their true intentions and manipulating the perceptions of others. They understand that appearances can be deceiving, and they carefully craft their public image to project an aura of competence, authority, and trustworthiness. They use flattery and charm to disarm their opponents, to lull them into a false sense of security, and to extract valuable information. They are skilled liars, capable of constructing elaborate narratives to deceive and manipulate those around them. They understand that truth is subjective, and they are adept at shaping it to their own advantage. Manipulation requires a deep understanding of human psychology. The Machiavellian operator studies the motivations, desires, and fears of others, identifying their vulnerabilities and exploiting their weaknesses. They understand the power of suggestion, using subtle cues and carefully crafted language to influence the thoughts and actions of others. They are masters of emotional manipulation, playing on the emotions of others to achieve their goals. They use guilt, shame, fear, and anger to control and coerce those around them. They are adept at creating divisions and fostering conflict, turning individuals against each other to weaken their collective power. The Machiavellian operator understands that power is a zero-sum game, that one person's gain is another person's loss. Therefore, they are constantly seeking to expand their own power at the expense of others. They are ruthless in their pursuit of dominance, willing to use any means necessary to achieve their objectives. They are not constrained by moral considerations or ethical boundaries, viewing these as mere obstacles to be overcome. The Machiavellian approach also involves a careful management of one's own image and reputation. While deception and manipulation are essential tools, they must be employed with discretion and subtlety. A reputation for dishonesty or ruthlessness can be a liability, making it difficult to gain the trust of others and attracting unwanted attention. Therefore, the Machiavellian operator cultivates a public image of competence, integrity, and even benevolence, while secretly pursuing their own self-serving agenda. This requires a delicate balancing act, a constant calibration of actions and words to maintain a plausible facade. The Machiavellian operator understands that perception is reality, and they carefully manage the perceptions of others to control their reactions. This also requires a deep understanding of the cultural norms and social expectations of the environment in which they operate. They adapt their behavior to conform to these expectations while simultaneously manipulating them to their own advantage. The key is to blend in, to avoid drawing undue attention, and to operate beneath the radar, subtly influencing events from behind the scenes. A crucial component is the art of strategic patience. The Machiavellian operator understands that power is not acquired overnight, but through a series of carefully calculated moves over a long period of time. They are willing to wait for the opportune moment, to bide their time, and to strike when their opponents are most vulnerable. They are not impulsive or reckless, but deliberate and methodical in their approach. They understand that patience is a virtue, and they are willing to endure short-term setbacks for long-term gains. This requires a high degree of self-control and discipline, the ability to suppress immediate gratification in favor of future rewards. The Machiavellian approach is not for the faint of heart. It demands a cold, calculating, and ruthless mindset. It requires one to abandon traditional morality and embrace a pragmatic approach to power. It is a dangerous game, but for those who are willing to play it, the rewards can be immense. The path to power is paved with deception, manipulation, and betrayal. Only those who are willing to navigate this treacherous terrain can hope to reach the summit. Consider the Roman Empire, a sprawling dominion built on conquest, assimilation, and a ruthless pursuit of power. Its rise and maintenance offer a chillingly relevant parallel to the principles of dark psychology at play in interpersonal dynamics. The legions, the Senate, the emperors, each played their part in a complex dance of manipulation, coercion, and strategic maneuvering. War, of course, was the engine of expansion, and the Roman war machine was a finely tuned instrument of destruction and control. But military might alone was never enough. The true architects of Roman power understood that lasting dominance required more than simply crushing their enemies on the battlefield. It demanded the subtle art of psychological warfare, the manipulation of public opinion, and the cultivation of alliances. The Roman approach to conquered territories was a masterclass in dark psychology. They didn't simply impose their will through brute force. Instead, they offered a carefully crafted blend of carrot and stick. Local elites were co-opted, offered positions of power and influence within the Roman system, effectively turning them into collaborators. This created a buffer between the Roman rulers and the general population, reducing the likelihood of rebellion and fostering a sense of shared interest. At the same time, the Romans maintained a strong military presence, a constant reminder of their power and the consequences of resistance. This created an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, discouraging dissent and ensuring compliance. The key was to create a system where the conquered people felt both compelled and incentivized to cooperate. This required a deep understanding of human psychology, the ability to identify and exploit vulnerabilities, and a willingness to use deception and manipulation to achieve their goals. The internal politics of Rome were no less Machiavellian. The Senate, a body ostensibly dedicated to representing the interests of the Roman people, was in reality a battleground for power and influence. Senators jockeyed for position, formed alliances, and engaged in intricate schemes to advance their own agendas. Bribery, intimidation, and even assassination were not uncommon tactics. The emperors, often ruthless and ambitious figures, were masters of manipulation. They understood the importance of maintaining popular support, and they used propaganda, spectacles, and lavish public works projects to cultivate a cult of personality. They also relied on a network of spies and informants to monitor their rivals and suppress dissent. The emperor's power rested on his ability to control the narrative, to project an image of strength and competence, and to keep his enemies divided. This required a constant vigilance, a willingness to betray allies, and a complete disregard for traditional morality. The Roman legal system, while often praised for its fairness and rationality, was also a tool of power. Laws were selectively enforced, depending on the political climate and the interests of those in power. Accusations were often fabricated, and trials were rigged to ensure the desired outcome. The legal system was used to silence dissent, to punish enemies, and to consolidate power. It was a system where justice was often secondary to political expediency. This highlights the fundamental principle that even seemingly impartial institutions can be manipulated and used to serve the interests of those in power. The Romans understood that law was not simply a set of rules, but a tool to be wielded strategically. The Roman Empire's longevity can be attributed, in part, to its understanding and application of dark psychological principles. They were masters of manipulation, coercion, and strategic deception. They understood that power is not simply about brute force, but about the ability to control the narrative, to exploit vulnerabilities, and to cultivate alliances. They were willing to use any means necessary to achieve their goals, and they were ruthless in their pursuit of power. Their story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dark side of human nature and the dangers of unchecked ambition. It also provides valuable insights into the dynamics of power, the importance of strategic thinking, and the art of manipulation. The Roman example, therefore, is not just a historical curiosity, but a timeless lesson in the cold logic of dark power. The principles they employed are still relevant today, in the corridors of power, in the boardrooms of corporations, and in the subtle interactions of everyday life. Understanding these principles is essential for navigating the complex and often treacherous landscape of human relationships. It allows one to recognize the subtle cues of manipulation, to anticipate the moves of one's opponents, and to protect oneself from exploitation. Therefore, mastery of these dark arts is not merely about seizing dominance. It is about understanding the very fabric of human motivation and societal structure. It involves an almost surgical detachment, the ability to analyze situations and people with cold objectivity, stripping away sentimentality and moral considerations. The individual who truly grasps the logic of dark power sees the world as a chessboard, with people as pieces to be moved and sacrificed in pursuit of strategic advantage. This perspective is not inherently evil, it is simply amoral. It acknowledges that ethical considerations are often luxuries that the powerful cannot afford. Morality, in this context, becomes just another tool, a mask to be worn when it serves one's interests and discarded when it becomes a liability. True practitioners of dark power understand the importance of reputation, and they will cultivate an image of virtue and integrity when it suits their purposes. But beneath this facade lies a ruthless pragmatism, a willingness to do whatever it takes to achieve their objectives. They are masters of deception, skilled at concealing their true intentions and manipulating others into acting against their own best interests. The ability to inspire loyalty, even love, while simultaneously maintaining absolute control, is the hallmark of a true Machiavellian. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, the ability to identify and exploit vulnerabilities, and the capacity to project an image of strength and authority. People are drawn to power, and they will often willingly submit to those who appear to be in control, even if it means sacrificing their own autonomy. The key is to create the illusion of inevitability, to convince others that resistance is futile and that their best interests lie in aligning themselves with the winning side. Furthermore, the cold logic dictates that alliances are transactional. They are formed for mutual benefit and discarded when they no longer serve a purpose. Sentimentality has no place in these calculations. Betrayal is simply a strategic tool, to be employed when the advantages outweigh the costs. The truly powerful are always prepared to sacrifice their allies if necessary, and they will do so without hesitation or remorse. They understand that the pursuit of power is a zero-sum game, and that someone must always lose in order for someone else to win. This is not a philosophy for the faint of heart. It requires a level of ruthlessness and detachment that is beyond the reach of most people. But for those who are willing to embrace the dark side, the rewards can be immense. Power, influence, and control over others are the ultimate prizes,